saw is badly pitted. I don't know how it's going to work. Here we go with a piece of cherry. 4/4, that's 1 inch thick, or so, 7/8 inch maybe. The awkwardness comes from the length of this thing. It's a good, 28 inches, I think? And in order to set the end of the blade on the board, you have to have the handle essentially by your ear, or you have to stand way back to the point where you can't see. It keeps catching on a single tooth here, one of them right in the middle. Now, it could be that there's a problem with the set, or perhaps I missed one sharpening it or something like that. But as you can see, the entire workbench is basically coming up off its legs. I'm not that strong. It's a very light workbench. The next project is a workbench. You'll see a big bed that I made before you see the workbench. But that is the next project. I'm working on it. What is it? December 20th, 2017. I am halfway finished with it. But you'll see that I never get the full blade through before the workbench tips up. Now, you saw how it went through. That is encouraging. Despite the fact that I could use only half of the blade, it really did chew right through that, and it was pretty straight, right on the line. Let's try ripping a piece of oak. Also 4/4. This is probably actually true 4/4. This is about 1 inch thick. It hasn't been planed. You can plainly see that I'm still catching at the same exact spot on the saw blade, and I'm still lifting up the entire table, or the entire workbench. A quick visual examination doesn't reveal any defects or anything obvious. Nothing bent out of shape, and I didn't really miss any of the teeth. I went over it 4 times with the plane, or with the file. Nevertheless, even with this handicap, I'm making quick work through oak on a straight line. No problems with drifting. Let's try resawing. This is a piece of cherry. By the way, all this cherry is indigenous. This is Western New York. It's a species, I don't know the exact name of the species, but there's a species of cherry around here and in Pennsylvania that has this iridescent quality. Like, I won't say exactly like mahogany, because mahogany is, something else. But this cherry, once it's planed and polished, it has an iridescent quality to it. It has this, second depth to it when you look into it, and it's peculiar to the species of cherry that's around here. There used to be a hardwood store called West Penn Hardwoods in Olean, New York, which was right on the border in central New York with Pennsylvania. It's the Finger Lakes region, southern tier region. But they closed that store, that location, and moved to North Carolina. So, I kind of have to look around in odd places for cherry anymore. Now, I'm about to drift. And I have a bad habit of drifting when I'm sawing. And I think part of it's laziness. I don't flip the board around like I should. I think that's what you're supposed to do. And also, I was holding on to the handle of the saw with both hands. And I think it makes your torso, or it makes my torso and my shoulders twist. And then you get that. What I did right there. I twisted the blade, and boy, was I mad when and so I got to do better. As an aside, or as a further note, you'll notice that I still wasn't getting all the way through the blade. It was still catching at the same spot. So I do think it's a tooth. Now, I have since resharpened this, and I don't have this problem anymore. So I think I just hadn't gone over the rust and pits enough with metal and file to get the teeth set right and sharpened right. Now I flipped it over, and I'm going to try to catch it solid from the other side going down. In the meantime, listen to a little tale about a fella named Jim Ableton. Yeah, and I'm so lazy when it comes to setting my vise right. If I would just do it right the first time, I wouldn't have this trouble. And look, I'm sorry if it frustrates you, but Jim Ableton, this comes out of Vincennes, Indiana, back when Vincennes was the capital of the West, if you can believe that. The United States, or it really was. The United States hadn't really gone past the mighty Wabash River yet, and the Ohio Valley was still being explored, and Vincennes was the capital of this vast west area, west of the Appalachians, before you get into the Mississippi Valley. A fellow named Jim Ableton was heading west and wanted a wife and had a challenge for her. And he was going through town, and he was called out in front of the St. Francis Xavier Cathedral, which is right there in downtown Vincennes. It's still there, by the way. And if you ever find yourself in Vincennes, Indiana, keep driving. That's terrible. My family, I never lived there, but my family did for a while after I went to school. St. Francis Xavier Cathedral is a wonderful little town. It's got a lot of history in it. It's, like a lot of towns that have a lot of history, though. Stuff dried up and went away. St. Francis Xavier there. You can ask, if you're there, about the saga of Jim Ableton. This fella named Bones McCarthy, Liam Bones McCarthy, called him out. And it was a bona fide shootout in the street. And Liam hid in the cathedral and shot, but he missed. By some miracle, he missed. And Jim Ableton just sort of waited. And Liam Bones McCarthy got impatient, and he gave up his advantage, and Jim Ableton shot him with a .45. Beautiful story. And Liam was surprised, and he says, "You can't kill me." And that's what's on his gravestone. And he died right there on the cathedral steps. He went over to Rebecca. Now, who's Rebecca? Rebecca was the judge's daughter. Oh, yeah, by the way, we're about to get this one open, and it's going to look good. We'll get to it in just a second here. I'm going to finish up this story here. She's the judge's daughter, and she had essentially agreed, perhaps being encouraged by her father, to take up as the wife of whoever it was that came out on top of this rivalry between Jim Ableton and Bones McCarthy. She wasn't happy that Jim Ableton won, but she made the agreement, and these were different times. She needed the husband, and the other guy was dead, so she agreed to it. She jumped on his horse. He immediately rode with her to the chapel where the preacher married them, and from there they immediately rode west until they came to a valley that Jim liked an awful lot, and there they had 2 kids almost right away. And then Jim Ableton rode away. He just rode away. She said, "Do you have to go?" And Jim replied, "There's a better land than this one, a far better land, with room to grow, where we can roam free on a ranch, stretching from horizon to horizon, with horses to ride, cattle to herd, and people from all over, people from every direction who speak every language, who have every kind of blood living with us. We can have all of it under one sprawling ranch house roof. Do you see it, Rebecca? Do you see the oak grove out front shading picnic tables, oaks whose branches swing low to have swings tied to them, so the children might frolic and play in a place where there is no fear, protected all around?" "Where is this place?" she asked. "Turns out," Jim replied, "it's my father's place. It's in the mountains." Now, back to the wood. I'm going to try this again, and I'm going to try to do a better job of watching the line, watching my drift from the line here, and seeing what this saw can do without a terrible mistake right in the middle like you just saw. So Jim takes a look at her, and he promises that he's going to come back. And he says something mysterious to her. He says, "When I come back from it, you'll know. In fact, you already know where it is." She says, "Where?" "Where I am," he said. "Do you believe me? I'm the one who killed Liam Bones McCarthy." And she said, "Yes, I saw that. I believe you." And at that, he loaded up his Winchester, he checked for ammo in his gun belt, and clicked through the cylinders of his twin Colt revivers. "Don't worry about me, and don't worry about yourself or the children." And off he rode. I thought I'd flip it lengthwise and try my luck this way. As you saw, I was beginning to drift, but this time away. So I don't think it's the saw. I think it really is user error that is causing the problem, and I've got to work on my technique if I want to resaw with any kind of success. This might be a good time to introduce some of the philosophy surrounding the Woolgathering woodworker. I am not a perfectionist woodworker. I'm not going to have perfectly clean joints. I'm going to be the guy that's going to work through my mistakes and still have usable pieces and still have aesthetically pleasing pieces, but not 50 years of experience making perfect dovetail joints. If I ever do that, it'll be a real miracle, and we should report it straight to the Pope. Now, Jim is out of sight, and Rebecca has to come to grips with the fact that she's Mrs. Ableton. I mean, he killed Bones McCarthy, and she's his wife. She's going to have to do better. But man, it was tough on her in the wilderness there in eastern Missouri. They were on the Missouri River west of the Mississippi, raising 2 little kids. But she did notice that foxes and coyotes and weasels, none of them, any varmint, ever came close to her chickens. And so she always had eggs and a little goat's milk. And she also noticed no hawk ever dived after her chickens either, and that was odd. It was in the back of her mind, though, because she was so busy. But then, on occasion, she'd wake up and find a brace of conies on her front doorstep, a pair of rabbits to eat. And they were skinned. She wasn't sure whether to appreciate it or not, because, you need more than rabbit skins to survive in eastern Missouri. Well, a fever came over all of eastern Missouri, and a lot of people caught it, and a lot of people died from it. And in fact, Rebecca's daughter got this fever, and she sent the boy into town as this desperate plea, "Go get the doctor." And he came back saying, "Well, the doctor's dead from the fever." She began to weep. She went to the window to begin to pray, and there she saw something that terrified her at first. Before we get to that, look at, I've got this wood open just about here. I did a much better job lengthwise like that. And you can see if you watch when the light hits, especially the right-hand panel here, you'll see this iridescent quality I'm talking about, the second depth. It's not quite here yet. There, you can kind of catch it. Now, if this were polished and planed real well, you'd see it. And see, you can kind of see there's a second depth, a quality of iridescence to this wood. I'm not going to have time to get back to Jim and Rebecca and what she saw. You can come to my John David Duke Jr. WordPress.com site and read up there. I'd love to have you over there too. I'm the Woolgathering Woodworker. May all your grain rise in your direction.